Nobody would have thought that I would be the one. Rhyner, sports talk. Baseball, 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 baseball.
Oh, with the big mic. Oh, okay. All right, yeah. Okay, now I get it.
We got a lightning strike, boys. What happened over there, Grego? We had a little lightning strike right outside the window.
All right. Here's a tip for all these Americano League teams.
Wait, you said tip?
Yeah, tip.
Okay.
With a P.
Keep jamming.
The ticket, colon, nothing but a big Gen X jerk-off sale.
This is a cool night or what?
Although somebody would hear that and go, bullshit.
I'm back, bitches.
Hello to each and every one of you out there in podcast land. Thank you for being with us today. This is your Dark Companion. It is the 13th of October today, and we are coming at you live at 5 in that way that we do here these days. From inside the nurturing biosphere of the mothership, I would be Mike Rhyner. We've got the whole crew with us today, Shoopy, Ashley, Becca, all here. And I've been waiting for the baseball season to get over so we could have this guy in. I did not want to disrupt him with the season still on because his gig has got to be one of the biggest grinds in sports media. Because it is every day, it is unrelenting, and no matter what, he or somebody like him has to be out there every day for every game. And there are 162 of these things when I last looked. And also when I last looked, they all counted. He is Evan Grant of the Dallas Morning News. He has been on the beat. The Rangers beat for the Morning News for these many years. How many now? Do you even keep count?
29. This just finished my 29th season on the Rangers.
Wow.
That means 30 is on the way.
Big 30-3-0. Half my life on the Texas Rangers.
Wow.
Now, I'm assuming that you're not going to be dropping any Woj bombs in here today or anything like that, and you're not going to announce that you're done and you're not coming back on this thing, are you?
As long as the Morning News is having me, I'm still there.
Yeah, he's already got a podcast to break it on anyway.
Yeah, he does.
The jerk.
Yeah, I mean, in between the two podcasts I'm doing at the Morning News now.
Whoa. Oh, that's right.
You're doing two?
Yeah, we do. Kevin Sherrington and I do the Sports Day Insider, which is every Tuesday, and we usually have a guest from the department. And then, John Blake and I, and we want to come see you, John and I, because that would be good. We might actually get into fisticuffs. But John Blake and I do the Rangers podcast in season. This was the first year we did that, and we're going to continue to do some like once a month during the off season. But It's been a hoot. We've had some good former Ranger guests.
Yes, you have. Man, it's been a lot of fun, and it's really neat. Because, now a lot of those guys have been gone from the game for a few years and things are a little bit different. They're a little bit more willing to talk about stuff than they might have been back then. And I understand that.
More, yeah. I mean, they are much more free. The big one for me was like, we had Cole Hamels on towards the end of the season. And when Cole was here, he was so regimented in his work in between starts and all that. You rarely talk to him except for after he pitched, right? In that 30-minute window after he pitched.
Yeah.
And he was great. We spent a good half an hour with him talking about all kinds of things, and he is just like us. Now he's kind of like old man yelling at clouds when it comes to the game these days.
What's his big pet peeve?
I mean, I think everybody just feels like look, as a pitcher, I think he loves where it's at, but I think that for the last generation of players there was still this touch of feel. And now everything just feels like it's overanalyzed, from biomechanics to metrics to just any kind of number. And I think that what what he felt like is that pitchers have lost some feel for reading hitters. And I know, that's part of if we talk about the Rangers offense, God forbid we'll talk about that. But if we talk about the Rangers offense, I mean, I felt like that team had no feel whatsoever for the situation this year. That was their biggest issue. You look at the teams in the playoffs, and I know that during the season, games have a little bit different feel, but these teams know how to execute when runs are there to be had.
Well, I guess we might as well just start there in view of the fact that this was one of the most, maybe the most bizarre Ranger season in terms of, I'm not talking about, bad or mediocre or anything. I'm not even talking about it from a result standpoint. Just the whole thing was weird. There was a weird vibe around it. And of course, we had the man bites dog thing of great pitching, no hitting.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the weirdness started, right?
Yeah.
Because it was like two things that you've never seen here. You had absolutely great starting pitching, and you had an offense that never, ever found any kind of rhythm.
Except for like a week and a half with the Little Rascals.
With the Little Rascals, yeah, when they had no other way to score runs
Yeah.
but to try and manufacture them. But I mean, I think that was the most. It is the most frustrating season I think I've covered, just because you wrote about the same thing over and over and over again, and there were never any satisfactory answers. There was never any real what you saw as consistent movement in terms of improvement. And I think for the Rangers, I think for the people who have been around, this was probably, I think I said this at the end of the season, that this was probably the most underwhelming, underachieving Ranger team, given the quote unquote talent that it had, and certainly the pitching that it had, that I've ever been around, and maybe that anybody's ever witnessed.
Was there any difference that you could discern from going from Donnie Ecker to Brett Boone as hitting coach?
I think if you look, like, Donnie left at the end of April, and if you give them a month to get used to Brett Boone, the numbers will show that the Rangers offense performed a little bit better than league average from June 1 until the end of the season. I think the biggest thing was, look, Donnie is a guy who is a new era coach, and he talks about training hard to make the game easy. And that's a great thing in concept, but what I saw was that they trained hard and it just made the game harder for them because they had too much going on in their heads or nothing going on in their heads. And I think what Brett brought was this. It's still valuable. It's still valuable to have a guy who had a legitimate career in the big leagues and who can draw upon the same experiences that guys are going through, the slumps, all of that. And so I think the messaging was probably a little bit better. The problem you run into with former players sometimes is they get into that habit of, well, this is how I did it. This is how I did it. I don't think Brett ever did that. I do think he used some of his experiences as talking points, but I don't think it was ever, it was like the Ted Williams thing. Well, this is how I hit.
Yeah.
And you guys can't hit like that, so you stink. They did stink, though. That was before my time, but They did kind of stink.
They did. They did. He didn't have much to work with, though.
No. So I think there was a little bit difference in messaging in terms of how they prepared for games. But the thing for me is, guys, look at this team from top to bottom, and everybody who took a step back in 24 took another step backwards in 25. And that's really alarming.
Do you recall a particular time or a particular event or thing where you just kind of looked at it and said, okay, this is weird. Something is really, really out of whack here?
I don't remember if there was a specific time. I felt towards the end of April that they had lost patience, that management had lost patience with Donnie Ecker's approach. But I don't ever recall if there was a point in time where I said, this is weird, other than the fact that nobody was getting better. It was team wide. That's the thing that was so weird, is guys you brought in, the new guys, Jake Berger and Jock Peterson. Both of them had track records of hitting fastballs. They didn't hit fastballs, right? Jock had the reputation of being patient, killing right-handers, he got off to an awful start. Jake didn't take walks at all. And I just felt like it just didn't feel connected. The offense didn't feel connected. Like nobody had an idea of, okay, this guy is going to do this and I'm going to do this and we're going to extend the rally. We're going to pass the baton. That's what felt weird.
Yeah. And it's so strange when they bring guys in here like those that you just mentioned who are being brought in for a specific reason, a very specific reason. In fact, so specific that they were cool with telling us exactly what they were bringing them in here to do.
And I think that's part of the problem in retrospect, Mike. I mean, I think these guys had drilled into their heads slug, slug, slug. And I think that led to big swings, kind of uphill swings. And you looked at the numbers the first 2 months of the season. I mean, they led the world. They launched more rockets than Elon Musk. I mean, pop-ups, actually. They went up vertically. They didn't go very far. Yeah, that was bad.
I liked it.
That you should throw me out after that.
No, I liked it. Besides, we got about another 50 minutes to go here, so I'm not throwing you out.
They went up. They just didn't go out. But that was the thing for me is I think those guys bought into it, and I think it took time to undo all of that. And that is something that they've got to work on this offseason. I think one thing that Chris Young talked about, like in the end of season wrap up, was that they did try to hit too many balls, try to pull too many balls, and that led to too many pop-ups. Mm-hmm. They need to, especially the way the ballpark is playing, and that's a whole nother conversation, but the way the ballpark is playing bigger now, I think they need to be more line drive, gap-to-gap hitters. You know, there's still plenty of room for power. And listen, opponents hit more home runs at Globe Life Field this year than the Rangers did. So other guys were able to hit home runs, and they were able to do it off a pretty good pitching staff.
Yeah.
But the Rangers' approach needs to change to more of we're going to hit line drives instead of we're going to slug.
That can be a hard thing for players to get their head around in this, a time of the home run, where the home run seems to be king with these guys.
I think if you look at the game, though, I think it's starting to become a little bit more cyclical. You know, it's starting to come back around towards you've got I don't want to say batting average matters. I think batting average does matter. You know, for a lot of people, it's too simplistic a stat now, but I think batting average does matter, and I think you have to put the ball in play. Good things happen when you put the ball in play, and you've got to be willing to understand situational hitting. There's nothing wrong with, you know, you've got a runner at third base or you've got a runner at second base. There's nothing wrong with trying to drive them in, but in that situation, make sure you're at the very least going the other way so you're going to advance that runner.
What was it like when the so-called Little Rascals came on board? And for those who don't know what we're talking about, toward the end of the year, the Rangers brought up several players from the minor leagues. They were not real well heralded prospects. If you keep up with the prospect thing, you probably were aware of them. But if you're out there roaming around in Gen Pop, you probably looked at him and said, who's this guy, you know? But they came up here, and those guys made an impact. Those guys made a difference, didn't they? They
did. And again, you know, for me, it kind of ran its course. You know, for 2 weeks, they surprised a lot of teams. Teams very quickly got books on them, and they were able to kind of readjust how they pitched Michael Hellman. But they brought some energy. They played the game really hard. You and I talked about this before we started the show, but like you look at the playoffs now and you look at the energy that teams are bringing, and it was very visible that this team did not play with energy. When you brought up Cody Freeman and you brought up Michael Hellman and you already had Wyatt Langford, who is a guy who always plays the game hard, you started to see more just what felt like a little bit more zip, a little bit more zest to the game.
I mean, it was, not to coin a really bad baseball cliche, but it's like they were looking alive out there.
Yeah. And listen, I do want to say this. Right, this team won the World Series with a very similar personality. That's my phone alarm.
You can turn it off.
We're not letting you leave yet.
This team won the World Series with a very similar personality. And so when you're successful, it just, the narrative is, well, they're businesslike, they're very even keeled.
Yeah.
When you're not successful, then it becomes like, it looks like they're dog ass tired out there. And that's how it looked this year. And it's looked that way for 2 years. They just have not, they've not performed. And it felt like the key thing I keep coming back to is like, there was no connectivity offensively to know how to set up or consummate a rally.
Yeah. I've read that from you. That
too many times.
Yeah.
It was a beating to try and come up with the same thing over and over.
I'll bet.
I mean, not that, look, I'm not going to complain about my job. I love my job. I love this community. I love the fact that this community got to hopefully read about, but certainly watch a World Series run. And I would never take that for granted. But it does become something of a challenge, when you're trying to come up with different ways to explain the same thing over and over again. But it was in 23, the bullpen had that issue where they blew a bunch of saves, and that seemed frustrating. But they were a winning team, so you got over that. This, when you're the absolute definition of mediocrity when it comes to record wise, it's just a little bit hard to come up with words.
And probably what made it even weirder for a guy like you was that while all that was going on, here you have Jacob deGrom, you have Nathan Eovaldi, you had Tyler Mahle, of all people, till he got hurt.
Patrick Corbin
shows up out of nowhere.
We thought he was baseball dead.
And he was he was serviceable. Not great, but serviceable. Those other guys were just flat out great. So here you are trying to figure out a way to juxtapose that kind of offense with that kind of pitching.
And the pitching, as much as people appreciated the pitching, I do think it didn't get the proper spotlight. But I know from my perspective, like going to the ballpark to watch deGrom pitch, going to the ballpark to watch Eovaldi pitch, those were exciting events. And I think the fans got into the idea of watching Eovaldi and deGrom just from the pure pitching spectacle of it. But that was really enjoyable, to know that you were going to go out there and watch a gem pitch. And you know what else was enjoyable? Was watching the progress that Jack Leiter made this year.
Yeah, that's another.
That was, if you're asking for one player who took a magnificent step forward across the board, it would be Leiter for me.
And that it didn't seem like that was overnight either. I mean, it seemed to me like the start of the season was not real smooth for him, but somewhere in there, something happened. Somebody said something or something kicked in, and the light kind of went on for him.
Well, look, I think he came out of spring in a pretty good place. He had the good start in Cincinnati, and then he had the blister, and so he was out a month. And then it took a little bit of time to kind of get his footing back. But I really think the fact that he's learned how to command his fastball a little bit. Last year you looked at the strike zone map and there were fastballs sprayed all over the place. This year he's got a much better idea. This year he had a much better idea of that. And then you add in that kind of split or the knuckle change up, the kick change is what they call it. What Andres Munoz is throwing for Seattle and what I think is the filthiest pitch in baseball right now. But
filthier than the sweeper?
Oh my God, yes. I mean, Munoz, for me, when Munoz comes into a game, it is lights out. I just think that his stuff in the ninth inning is absolutely filthy. But Jack's progress with that, I thought, look, Nathan Eovaldi's a great teammate and a great sounding board for young players. Jack, with his baseball background and having had a dad in Al Leiter who loves to talk ball, he had a lot of that. Mm-hmm. I think there were times where he was processing too much at one time. But I think as the season got on, he and Nathan really developed a good rapport about scouting reports. And a lot of times Jack was following Nathan out. Sorry, Mike.
That's all right.
He needs to put on his ointment.
Nathan and Jack.
He followed that playbook, and it really made for continued and sustained growth. And there are situations that go beyond like just plain skills, right? But I think the dynamic of how this coaching staff was wired, you had Mike Maddox, who's a great game planner and who makes game plans simple. You had Jordan Teagues in the bullpen, who worked with these guys in the minor leagues and knew the younger guys in the minor leagues, like Latz and Leiter. And you have Dave Bush, who is really kind of a pitch technician, understands the art of pitching design and pitch execution. So you had different guys with different voices who were able to kind of form strong points in every element of a guy's game. You had Evaldi. And then you had DeGrom there, who he also watched. And, nobody's got Jacob's absolute talent. But I think all those circumstances made for the whole idea of it takes a village to help this guy grow. And I really think that by the end of the season, he really is in a position to become a star pitcher in 26.
No, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I watched him toward the end of the year, and he was completely different.
He dominated a playoff team, you know, on the final weekend of the season.
Yeah, I mean, he was completely different from the guy they were running out there earlier in the year. Is there any hope for Kumar Rocker?
I think so. I mean, I think the Rangers would like to see Kumar follow the similar path that Jack did. Everybody would like to see that. But I think Kumar had some trouble with some secondary pitches. And also, I think some of his strikes were a little bit scattered. He went through kind of the same development program over the last half of the season that Jack went through in 2023. So if you're kind of aligning timelines, I would think that maybe the look would be that Kumar really establishes himself in 27. But I think the Rangers would like to give him the opportunity to certainly establish himself in 26. He's going to have to trust his secondary stuff more. I just think that too much of his stuff looked all on the same plane and was all about the same speed.
Are they going to have patience with him?
I think so. I mean, I think they're going to have patience. I think they'll have some degree of patience.
Yeah.
I think he's got to show. Look, let me put it this way. He made two real boneheaded fielding decisions in the start at Tampa Bay, which earned him a demotion. And what we saw after he came back from that, quicker than I expected him to come back, was we saw a guy who was much sharper when it came to fielding baseballs and details of covering first. And so I think that the ability to process his stuff is there. I think he's going to take this winter having had some legitimate major league experience, some time to work. The last couple months of the season, we're working with trying to come up with a little bit of a higher arm angle and make his pitches look more similar coming out, but having a little bit different movement. He's got to have pitches that go a little bit both sides of the plate.
Yeah.
Will he learn how to hydrate?
I just think that really Rangers hitters probably should have been taking shots at the plate, not necessarily pickle juice, but maybe that would have helped him this year. I've never seen anything like that where the guy takes like 3 shots of pickle juice on the mound, but helped him get through it.
Like, dude looked like he was sweating quite a bit, and I'm not going to judge too harshly on that, but his uniform was soaked really early in games.
But, Michael, that's one thing that you mentioned that, right? If you watch Jack last year, like he was a nervous wreck on the mound. His head's going every which way. It was a ball of sweat. And this year he slowed all that down. And I think once you get some of that major league experience under yourself, you're able to slow it down a little bit more. Yeah. And so hopefully, next year Kumar will be a little bit more under control on the mound too.
Bring down the heart rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then things happen like, the Dodger-Philly series and how that ended.
Oof.
I was talking to some people, and, the minute the ball hit off his glove, I knew the game was over because it does speed up your internal clock, and it's like he blacked out. It's like Kerkering just absolutely blacked out, forgot how many outs there were, forgot the runner was slow, forgot he had time, and you can't control it. And so even in the highest stakes games, and even guys with absolute unbelievable ability, it will get you.
Yeah. Man, how much ointment do you have?
People want me today. I don't know what it is.
We all want
It's
you.
just you, man.
Yeah.
It's you.
The bullpen is in love with you.
It's that Evan Grant thing.
Nobody's had this happen on the show, have they?
Not like this.
I mean, Shoopy has, but I don't know if he counts.
No, I don't count. I definitely don't count.
I'm sorry.
Do you need to attend to something, or
No, there's nothing I need to
need to write an
attend.
article?
There is nothing in my life that is more important than being here with you.
No, I don't believe that.
I don't believe that either.
You
That was
don't?
really sweet.
But I
of him.
like it.
Yeah.
I like the thought of it.
We'll take a compliment.
I guess I'm just
I'm
not
just
very
glad you're here.
believable when I
We're
lie.
really glad to have you.
I am thrilled to be here. I am sorry about my phone.
I wanted to respect the gig and everything, and wait for the season to end and give you a little downtime, before we got you in here and everything.
Off seasons are overrated. I'll off season when I'm dead. I'm happy to be here. I just need to make sure that the audience knows nobody's actually texting me with relevant information. So no news is breaking. Nothing's going on. It's all good.
Wife just letting you know the dog peed again.
We've had some puppy problems at home.
He came in all stressed.
Those will happen. So what was the chemistry on this team like this year?
And again, chemistry is one of those subjective things, right?
It
we
is.
just talked about 23 and how, they were businesslike. And this year it's like they're unconnected.
I feel like, having been part of an organization that had really good chemistry and having been a part of some others that did not.
This was not a great chemistry group. I mean, it just wasn't. I think that there are a lot of guys who are very individual and regimented in their preparation. I mean, Corey Seager's regimen has been well documented, and he's very solitary in how he does that. He's also very dedicated, and he's the best hitter on the team. Mm-hmm. So my recommendation would be, don't change anything.
Right.
Marcus Semien is very regimented in the way he does things. I think if there was an issue between the two, I'd like to see them maybe have a little bit more compromise of, okay, Corey does what he does. Marcus wants to feel more comfortable taking some ground balls with his double play partner. Let's make that happen every once in a while. I don't know that it impeded their ability to turn double plays, but I do think that, it was hard for Marcus to see the way Corey did things, and Corey was doing things his own way, and the two of them just didn't have a real good meeting of the minds about any of that stuff. And I think, when your two core players are kind of on different paths, it forces the young guys, not that anybody is a bad guy, not that anybody badmouthed anybody, but it forces your young players to kind of follow one or the other. And in this case, I got to tell you, Corey Seager is one of the best hitters in the big leagues. And when other guys demonstrate that they're the best hitters in the big leagues, then fine, go do your thing on your own. But until then, I think, there's got to be some more group involvement, some more, I don't want to say bonding, but there's just got to be better connectivity, because I think where it plays over is just in the way of execution, just execution on the field, or having feel for what is needed in the rally. And I just don't think those guys talked enough.
And do you think some of Semien's leadership might have been a little diminished with his performance the last couple of years?
I'm sure it has. It's hard to go from being third in the American League MVP race to sub 700 OPS seasons in back-to-back years. And, the prospects aren't great for Marcus to recover. You can talk to Brett Boone, who was a 35-year-old second baseman at one point in time. You can talk to Ian Kinsler, who was a 35-year-old second baseman at one point in time, and they'll tell you that they weren't second basemen very much longer after that, because it does seem like there is an inordinate number of guys who hit that wall at 35, and the decline becomes kind of precipitous. So I think Marcus's swing didn't lose any speed. His agility certainly didn't lose any speed. He's got to come up with something to make himself a little bit more competitive at the plate if he's going to go forward.
That's what I noticed watching him. I mean, he looked like he always had. It didn't look like, to my extremely untrained eye, that there was anything wrong. Yet the results were just not
it
there.
felt like his swing was the same. It just wasn't going as far.
Yeah. And look, I think a lot of guys would tell you that they felt like their swings didn't go as far in the ballpark, and that is a subject that the Rangers are going to have to deal with. I also feel like some of those guys early on, when they got themselves into really bad starts and were panicked over some of the numbers, I think they tried some things, and Marcus tried to go to the right side a little bit more, and it was marginally successful. But his best ability is to pull the ball, in the air. And I know that contradicts what we just said, but he's got to pull line drives, make it hit balls on lines as opposed to just hitting fly balls, because it's not going to carry in this ballpark. And as you age, I'm sorry, age is undefeated. You're eventually going to lose any of that power.
But those two were far from the only ones.
Oh, I mean, everybody had issues. Jack Peterson got off to a terrible start, and I think he would tell you that it panicked him, and it cost him the ability to have any real. He was brought in partly to have an influence on the clubhouse, and you're hitting a $105.
Yeah.
You've got no ability to say anything, and so I think that impacted his ability to do anything. Jake Berger, I think, tried to do too much when he got here and bought into the whole I'm here to slug home runs. And so his takes were fewer and far between than ever before. He's always been an aggressive hitter, but I think his walk rate was 3.4%. It was like the third lowest in baseball, just unacceptable. And he knows he's got to have better plate discipline, but he was fighting an uphill battle all year. That is the thing, man. You get into those situations where your numbers are horrible at the beginning of the year, and you feel like you've got to turn around. The saying is you can't turn around overnight, but guys still focus on the numbers instead of focusing on the process ahead.
This is Evan Grant of the Dallas Morning News.
And my phone.
And his phone. As you can probably tell, he likes baseball. Mm-hmm. And I like baseball too. And I'm having great fun talking Rangers baseball with Evan. However, this does not...
I don't know. You don't sound like you're having great fun.
Oh, I am having great fun.
He has fun talking with you. It's just not necessarily fun talking about the 2025 Rangers.
I get it, man. I get it. I don't know what else to say. I like... We have said it over and over on this podcast. We've said it over and over all year. It just was the most frustrating and underperforming Ranger team in my memory. I thought it was perfect that they finished the season 81-81 because they were neither winner nor loser. They were nothing.
That's a nice bit of I guess,
record symmetry.
Yeah, there you go. There, that's what I'm looking for.
Record symmetry.
Yes, for this thing.
Serendipity.
Well, we will get back to Evan in just a minute, but right now we must stop down for just a second here. And let us do the dreaded and feared mid-show read. And we will begin it today by talking to you about what's going on with you these days. Are you walking around in pain out there? Are you anxious all the time? Can you sleep at night? Well, if you're having trouble with it, let me tell you about the CBD House of Healing. What if I told you there's a way around all that stuff, and you can do it naturally? At the CBD House of Healing, they only carry products from their lab. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, I'm going to go over there and somebody's going to come up to me and say, what's up? And I'll tell them what's up, what's wrong, and what I'm looking to fix. And they'll go back there and bring out some gummies and send me on my way. No, that is not the way they roll there. They will listen to you. Their owner used to be an RN, and she knows all about how this stuff works. The products made to meet the highest quality and purity standards. They know what they're doing. They will listen to what's going on with you, and they will come up with something to help you out. The reason I know this is because they did it for me not too long ago. I had something going on in my neck. Didn't know what it was. I went out there. They found some stuff, and the stuff worked. Find your relief from the aches and pains in this world, the emotional stress and drain, and sleep again. Shop online at cbddallas.com, or you can go over there and see them in person. While you're there, you can grab a slushie. Those are fun. They're at 8550 Plano Road, Suite 101 in Dallas. That is in the northeast quadrant of the burgeoning intersection of Plano Road and Northwest Highway. Begin your healing at the CBD House of Healing. And effective right now, right this very minute, all vape products are sold online only. Go to @cbddallas.com for more on that.
They have a Rangers formulary that'll give you some relief from the Rangers.
That's what we wanted you in here for.
They have little gummy versions of Rangers Captain.
Boy, that'd be awesome.
We might have to talk to Summer about this. Yeah.
So all of this, Evan, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but all of this that we've been talking about here and what happened this season has led to a new manager.
You're kidding me.
That's what I've heard.
Sorry to break it to you.
Before we get into him and your thoughts on him, was the vibe around there that this was going to be Bruce's last year from the start, or was it kind of a progression, or how did it play out through your eyes?
Look, I think Boch was cagey on ever saying anything about how he really felt. You know, even to the point where I think he said in September when Kevin asked him that he still loves managing. He didn't say, I love managing the Rangers.
Yeah.
He said, I still love managing. I think he wanted to keep all his options open. As I've said, I think when the Rangers hired him, it was with the idea that this would be a 3-year deal and that it would be Bruce would come in here and he would, over time, get this team to be a World Series contender. He flipped the script by making them a World Series contender with nowhere to go but down after that, you know, and in the first year. And so I think, you know, it was a little bit disappointing. And the fact that this offense didn't perform certainly, I think, led to more thoughts that maybe it's time that a different voice can get to him. And maybe Bruce thought also, like, I need a break from this because I'm just not I'm not getting results. I think the bottom line on all of this is that everybody in the Rangers organization, from management on down, needs to be able to accept some accountability that they had a Hall of Fame manager here and they could only produce one winning season under him. And that's mostly on the players. It's on roster construction. It's on, to some extent on the manager as well. But I don't think Bruce Bochy lost his fastball. I think where he thinks on the game, maybe there's a little bit more gut play than analytical move than you would like. But I don't think the Rangers didn't not make the playoffs because Bruce Bochy was in the manager's seat. The Rangers didn't make the playoffs because their offense didn't hit. And that for a lot of guys, it was the second consecutive year that they didn't hit.
And that's just where we are.
Yeah.
And where we're going.
Adolis Garcia, Jonah Heim, Josh Young took a step backwards, right? We mentioned Berger. We mentioned Peterson. Josh Smith, ran the same exact kind of race that he ran the year before. Got off to a hot start. The more he played, the more he got worn down. And just on and on and on. Evan Carter, same story as 24, got hurt. Now this one was unfortunately was a broken bone in his hand, and that was a freak injury. But still, 3 years in now, Evan Carter doesn't have 162 games of Major League experience. So how can you really, truly evaluate him?
You can't. There's no way.
There's a lot of questions that this team has to tackle this offseason.
What are the biggest?
Well, I think it starts with what's the payroll going to be? Because you've got $144 million committed to 6 players. And all we've heard is that the payroll is absolutely going to be below the CBT threshold, which, not to be confused with CBD threshold, but the CBT threshold of 243 next year. So that gives them.
See, it's masterful bon mots like that have put him where he is.
That's why we love him.
So if it's one thing if they're at 220. It's another thing if Ray Davis says, I want to be under 200. Because if you're under 200 million, it gives you about $55 million to construct the rest of a roster. It's just not doable to create a contending team. So that's the biggest question, is exactly what are the payroll restrictions. Then once you get that, then you have to determine if to be a contending team, you've got to trade some of your bigger salaries. And I think at this point, the only two big salaries that you could trade and not have to eat money are Seager and DeGrom. DeGrom's got a full no trade clause, so he could invoke that at any point in time. Mm-hmm. Seager's got a limited no trade clause. I think it's 10 teams. So you've got some limitations there. I think that's where everything starts. We'll see, Skip Schumaker, and we'll get into Skip here in a minute, but he said in his opening press conference, right, that he believes in a business acronym C.A.P.E, communication, alignment, preparation, execution. That's all. It all sounds great. Now you've got to go do it, right, with 26 guys. You've got to get the message through. And as we talked about before, you don't know. I think at this point in time, almost 3.5 years in, we don't know who Josh Young is. He went backwards. We don't know who Evan Carter is. You're definitely going to need to replace a catcher, because I just can't see Jonah Heim being tendered a contract to come back. You probably need to find a right fielder, because I don't see them bringing Adolis Garcia back. So those are, it's a lot of holes.
Yeah. Now, Jonah Heim, I understand. I mean, this was just a horrible year for him. The fact that even I noticed that he just didn't look into it at all this year.
I mean, players joked about it with him, and he was a good sport about that, but it was the worst body language I have ever seen. It pained me on occasion to watch him play with such a hangdog kind of atmosphere or approach.
Yeah. And as we were talking earlier, the weird thing about that is just a couple years ago, we were thinking that catcher was fixed around here for a long time.
Yeah, you would have thought if they had, after 23, if they had given Jonah Heim a long-term deal, you would have thought, great, you got your catch.
Yeah.
He's a great framer. He throws well. He was an all-star as a hitter. You're in great shape.
Yep, that's one thing you don't have to worry about. But no.
Now you got to worry about it a lot, because it's not a great catching free agent market. They don't have any catchers anywhere near being ready in the big league. So for me, that is the biggest priority this offseason, is to get a catcher with presence and who does something really well. He may not be a great offensive threat. There's very few of those. There's only one, Cal Raleigh. But you need to get somebody who does something really well. And it's got to be a guy who can catch 100 games, because I think Kyle Higashioka had a good year as the backup.
Yeah.
A good offensive year.
He was one of the biggest surprises for me.
But physically, he can't hold up for more than 50 or 60 games behind the plate. So you've got to do something there.
And all right, what about...
You still feeling good about talking to me?
I'm always feeling good about talking to you. Oh. And what about Adolis? All right, let me tell you my problem with him.
You've got some grievances to air. Let's
to
go.
make this all about me.
Festivus.
The thing about Adolis is time and time again, he would come up to bat, and after about 3 pitches or so, he looked like he was not interested in anything else except getting the at-bat over with.
He looked defeated. I mean, there were times where he looked defeated. And I think, listen, the guy was the emotional heartbeat of anything good that happened in 21, 22, and certainly in 23. Mm-hmm. But guys who are the emotional heartbeat of a club can also get into funks when things aren't going well. And this is 2 consecutive years of really poor offensive performance for Adolis. He had worked awfully hard to get himself back in shape. I don't want to say get back in shape. I mean, the guy's in right? He should have been at WWE Crown Jewel this weekend in Australia, but he's in great physical shape. But his knees were hurting, and he wasn't moving as well in the outfield. And we saw a guy play great right field for most of the year. There were some occasional lapses here and there, but he played great, a great athletic right field. I just feel like pitchers have figured him out, and Adolis either hasn't been able to make adjustments or can't, or is unwilling.
So what happens now?
Well, I mean, again, I think I was very encouraged by the way Alejandro Osuna played over the final month of the season when he was called back up. After he was called back up in August, he looked overwhelmed early in the year, and probably should have been overwhelmed because he was coming from Double-A. I like the way he plays. I like his at-bats. I don't know if he's your everyday right fielder, but I certainly think you can have a platoon arrangement where he's a viable platoon right fielder. Now, the problem with this is if you've got Evan Carter in center field and you've got Alejandro Osuna in right field, you got two left-handed batters who probably need a platoon side on the right side. So you've got to have two platoon outfielders in addition to your regular outfielders. Could one of them be Zeke Duran? Athletically, maybe, but even with the last couple of weeks that he had during the year, Zeke's not shown me anything offensively for the last 2 years either. He had no home runs in 200-plus at-bats. He has 3 home runs over the last 2 years in nearly 500 at-bats.
He was pretty much brought here to be a utility infielder anyway, and that's what he looks like.
I think. Well, in 21, I think they had hope that they had traded for their second baseman or shortstop, and then they went out obviously and signed Seager and Semien, and he becomes a utility guy, and he's not responded well to the utility role. He doesn't like. I think Josh Smith comes off the bench well and can take at bats 3 or 4 times a week and have more competitive at bats. Doesn't seem that way for Duran. And look, to be fair to Zeke, I think he got less opportunity to do that than Josh did.
And his base running got really concerning too, it felt like.
There were times where you would just say, what's Zeke doing? It was not great instinctive base running. Like, I didn't feel like on the bases he was terribly instinctive. Now, defensively, my take on Rugi Odor was this guy worked really hard. He tried really hard, but he had the least amount of baseball instincts that I've ever seen in a player. He could run into some balls and hit some home runs, but he didn't have great baseball instincts. Not on the bases. He was just going to run until somebody tagged him out. Not in the field. Zeke has nice hands. He makes some nice plays in the infield, and he's got the athleticism to be, you would think, a decent hitter, but both on the base pass, he hasn't optimized himself, and at the plate, his plate discipline is woeful.
He is what he is.
Yeah.
So what happens with him?
Well, he's ARB eligible this year, I think, and he goes his projected ARB number is like 1.5, and again, if that's what you're paying for a utility infielder, not that bad. But I just don't know that he helps me win a championship. I see Josh Smith as a utility player with 350 to 450 plate appearances on a championship team.
Yeah.
On a championship team, I see Zeke as a guy getting 200, 250, maybe 300 at bats, and I haven't seen him succeed in that role. Now, you could trade him somewhere, and he could go somewhere and be somebody's second baseman or shortstop, and maybe he plays every day, and he really excels in that role. The only option for the Rangers, I think, would be if you're able to trade Semien and eat some of that contract, or if you do trade Seager, then maybe you give Zeke an opportunity to play every day in the middle. But then you're taking a real chance because the guy has not shown you anything.
What kind of market do you think there might be for Semien and Seager out there?
Well, for Semien, you'd have to eat a significant amount of the contract.
Yeah.
He's got $26 million a year for the next 3 years. I think you'd have to eat probably $20 million per year. So you're talking about a bite down of $60 million. But that's money already spent. If you get $6 million off the books, that's $6 million that might be very, very precious if you've got a reduced payroll. Seager, I think you could make a trade and get back real pieces that could help you. I think there are several teams that would have interest in him. The Yankees definitely come to mind. They haven't been happy with Anthony Volpe at center at short, and maybe Volpe is a guy who you would ask for in a deal here. Maybe Volpe and Leiter together since they were high school teammates and best friends. Maybe that helps him get more at ease, and maybe getting out of New York helps him. But that deal would have to be a lot bigger than that. I think there are some other teams too that would have interest. Certainly the Braves would be an attractive potential trade partner for me if I could tap into, if Atlanta wants to do something different after they had their most disappointing season in a while. So those are some things that I think the Rangers have to consider, particularly if the payroll is going to go down by a significant amount.
Can I say I have a trade rumor I've seen, not from any legitimate sources like you, but I have seen someone suggesting the salary swap of Trout and Semien. Get us a right fielder.
Well, that would be more than a salary trust.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think Trout's like $32 million.
Yeah, that's why I said I haven't seen anyone legit, but it's fun to laugh about at the least.
I'd make that. I mean,
would too.
No offense to anybody here. Marcus is a great player, but even if Mike Trout's on the downswing, he's younger than Semien is, and he was the best player of a generation. So I'd take my chances on that.
Hell yeah.
So into the big middle of all this jumps Skip Schumaker. Now, Skip Schumaker had been in the organization for a few years now.
No, just 1 year.
Oh, just 1 year?
Yeah.
Was he ever around? Like, did you ever run into him or anything?
Oh yeah, he was around. I mean, this was my column off of the press conference the day that he was introduced was, I think that the year that he spent around this organization was invaluable to both him and to the organization. And I think it's a large reason why he never got out into the market where he would have been the hottest managerial candidate out there. But he had invested a lot of time. You know, he came in and he watched the big league team, I don't know, once a month, but then he would also piggyback and go watch Frisco for several days and got to know the people at Frisco, like Carlos Cardozo, who's a rising star in the organization as a coach. He got to know Connor Gunn, who's now taking over kind of the hitting philosophy in the minor leagues, kind of the liaison between the majors and the minor leagues. So he spent a lot of time getting to know this organization. And I think as deliberate and as intentional as Skip is, he wasn't going to let that go to waste. And I mean, think about it, Mike. You know, if even when you're promoting somebody from within, usually it's either a coach who saw the big league team but not the minor league team, or you're promoting somebody from the minor leagues on occasion who hasn't managed in the big leagues and doesn't know big leaguers. Skip was a rookie manager of the year with Miami in 23. He was around this organization at the big league level and at the minor league level. The way I described it is he was basically able to audit the Rangers organization for a year. And I think that is valuable. I don't know that it translates to immediate success because of all the other things that we just talked about, but I think it puts him in the best possible position to succeed.
Any feel for what kind of guy he is?
Well, I mean, the words that I've just, from the few interactions I've had with him, I think he is when I say deliberate and intentional, like I don't think he wastes time, you know? Yeah. And I think he's going to be honest with players. One thing he said, and he kind of said this in the presser on Friday, but he said this on a podcast because everything the world runs on podcasts.
Of course.
Damn right.
But he said
we're the cutting edge.
Yeah.
He said this on a podcast with Scott Linebrink, the former pitcher, about his belief that even the best players want to still be coached. And I that stuck with me. So I think he's not going to be as loose as Boch was. He's going to be a little bit tighter, and that's also how the pendulum goes, right? Well, we had an easygoing manager. Now we have to have somebody who's a little bit more tighter reins, or it's an older manager. Got to have somebody younger. That's how the pendulum swings. But he's certainly got talent, and I know this. He is very, very close friends with Michael Young. And Michael, I've had the privilege of knowing Michael for 25 years.
And that is a privilege, too. He's a great guy.
It is for me. Yeah, absolutely. And his baseball mind is rock solid. And I think both of them approach baseball the same way, with the one exception that Skip is apparently a world-class prankster.
Yes. What is it, him and Wainwright?
He and Wainwright
Apparently had
went
some
back and
epic
forth.
prank wars.
Adam Wainwright and he are very close friends as well. And I talked to Wainwright last week for the story that I did. And, yeah, they had a prank where I didn't get this. This is the one story I didn't get into it. Their wives got into it. So apparently the Skip's wife, Lindsay, and Adam's wife went out and they bought one of those charms, the heart charms that, are
Like best
put two
friend.
halves,
Yeah.
Put two halves together. Each one gets half of the chain.
Me and Shoopy have one.
And they gave one to each one undercover that they didn't know it was from the wife. They opened the thing and it had it engraving on there, just so you know you're always with me, like Skip, or just so you know you're always with me, Adam. And the two of them walked around awkwardly for a week, and then they finally said to one another something about about this necklace, and I think Skip responded, "Yeah, I want to talk to you about that." And only then did they figure out that their wives had pulled this on them. Another occasion that I didn't get in my story is that Skip and apparently Nick Punto, another player he's real close with, when they were with the Dodgers in September of 2013 with Michael, decided that they were going to get into Michael's car after a game leaving Dodger Stadium and scare him. Well, they got the clubby to get him Michael's keys. They got in the car, in the back seat. They were prepared. It was a world-class prank. They just weren't prepared that Michael was going to give his mother a ride home that night. So they scared the bejesus out of Michael Young's mother. I don't think Michael has ever let him live that down. I don't know if he'll be pulling pranks on anybody, but maybe occasionally the media, so I've got to stay on my toes for that.
Yeah, I feel like when you're the manager, you kind of have to let that slide for a while.
Yeah, I asked Berger, because Jake Berger played for him in Miami. I said, did he pull any pranks on you? He said, no, he didn't. I think when you're the manager, you kind of have to have a different mindset. So
I do hope he gets y'all.
I'm sure he will.
At least hot foot or something like that.
Well, yeah, that'd be great. We're doing the manager's thing in the dugout. All of a sudden, my shoe's on fire.
That'd be awesome. Which, by the way, we got Skip Schumaker on our show on Wednesday.
Yes, we do.
Thanks to our pal Stephen Woods.
Yes.
Well, now you've got fodder for pranks. Ask him about the bat that Michael Young signed for him.
Okay.
You taking all this down, Shoopy?
I am now.
I don't think he's going to want to tell that story. But anyway, so I'll tell it here in the safe form. But when Michael got to the Dodgers in 2013, the Phillies traded him to the Dodgers. And he joined the team in Colorado, and he's racing because obviously all his gear at that point in time was Phillies red. He's racing to find a pair of cleats for the game that are blue, and he's trying stuff on. And the way Michael tells the story is all of a sudden he hears this thud at his feet. And he looks down, and there's a 2011 World Series ring that Skip had just thrown down at his feet. So when Michael signed a bat for him later on, he made a reference to the ring, and it there might be some profanity involved.
Might be. Any word on how he sees the staff as of yet?
The only thing that's been determined was that they had informed Bobby Wilson that he won't be coming back, and Bobby had confirmed that. I suspect, given how much Chris Young thinks of Mike Maddox and this coaching staff, I'm guessing the pitching staff will stay intact. And I'd be hard to get rid of a pitching staff after you just led the big leagues in ERA. I don't know what's going to happen on the bases. Luis Ureta was on his staff in Miami, and I think they talked every day during the season, which was another thing where he was able to get a feel for what was going on. So I think it's very likely that Luis Ureta is back in his role. I would not be surprised, based on his past, if one former Rangers catcher is replaced by another former Rangers catcher. And no, we're not getting Pudge as the catching instructor. But Rod Barajas was Skip's, I believe, catching instructor in Miami, and they have a long time mentorship or relationship. So it wouldn't surprise me if Rod ends up here in kind of a catching instructor, quality assurance type role. That's what he did in Miami.
Is it fair to suppose that he was brought in here for this, to watch for a year, or just watch for a year, maybe a little bit longer, while Boach figured out what he wanted to do?
Oh yes, I mean, I think that they had a window last year, right? Will Venable was in that kind of managerial successor. He was in the Will Muschamp at Texas role, right? Designated successor. And then Will took the job to manage the White Sox.
Yeah.
And they had I think Skip had an unpleasant finish in Miami because they changed GMs above him the year that they went to the playoffs and basically changed the entire direction of the club, as the Marlins are so prone to do.
Yes.
And so I think he wanted to step back for a year and wanted to spend a little bit more time at home. His son Brody is an elite baseball player who's a TCU commit. So he wanted to spend some time there. And so the Rangers had this managerial designated successor role kind of open up. They had a 70-year-old manager who was in the last year of their deal. It just made sense. Now, I don't think at any point in time Skip talked to Chris Young in the sense of, well, if I was manager, or if I was this, or if I was that.
Yeah.
I think they talked baseball. And I think the reason that you didn't have Bruce Bochy's departure on Monday and Skip's announcement the next day was largely in part so that those two guys could then sit down and say, okay, we know how we communicate. Now how do we communicate as president of baseball operations or GM and manager? And same thing with Ross Fenstermaker. And I think they had to have those conversations then. I don't think Skip ever once presumed that he was going to take Bruce Bochy's job. And I don't think Bruce Bochy ever was concerned one way or another that Skip was there to take his job. I think it was just really serendipitous for the organization. And the only shame in all of this would have been if the Rangers ended up without the Hall of Fame manager and without the young manager of the year. You know, if they had ended out with neither of those guys, then I think they find themselves in a bad situation.
Seemed like for about 20 minutes last week, his name was kind of hot out there, that he was, maybe looking at some other teams or looking at some other situations.
And look, I think that was all basically gossip, because I think what happened is they talked Tuesday and Wednesday. They had some negotiations that lasted into Friday, and that's why Friday, of not this past week, but the week before, the Rangers were in position to name him as the new manager, because there were still some contract negotiations. And look, if I was in Skip's spot, I would have used that week to absolutely exert whatever leverage I had, because he was going to be a hot commodity and he had the ability to basically dictate his terms. So hopefully he did that. He got a 4-year deal.
Yeah.
We don't have the financial terms, but listen, Bochy's was a 3-year deal. This is a 4-year deal. So I'm assuming that he said, I'm going to get an extra year out of this for sure.
Yeah.
And so I think it was more, just negotiations to finish off. But what Chris Young made very clear in the wrap-up press conference was that Skip Schumaker was still under Rangers contract through the end of October. He had not been given permission to talk to any clubs about outside employment. And so I left that press conference knowing that it was either going to happen after hours, the Friday news dump, or it was going to happen on Monday. It was just going to take some time for negotiations to be wrapped up. But they had no intent of letting Skip talk to anybody else.
Boy, the Friday news dump seems to be a thing around here. This would have been one more added on to it. Were you a fan of the Friday news dump?
Not particularly. I would like, because I had written a column that Friday. I had written a whole column. It was online. It was a good column, I thought. Rarely do I have a good column. I thought this was a pretty good column.
Evan, you have a good column. Every time you sit down to write, magic turns out.
And then 7:45, I get word that they've named him manager. So I had to retool that a little bit. And I'm not a huge fan of the Friday news dump, especially with earlier print deadlines, but we made it work. And I was happy that they were able to get it done in that quickly. And listen, to everybody else, like, there are 8 managerial openings out there, and ain't nobody else close on hiring somebody. And to that point, the Padres' Mike Schilt announced today that he's retiring. So, I mean, other clubs are behind, and the Rangers have got their manager before I think before the World Series start. They'll probably have their coaching staff in place, and so they can hit the ground running in terms of the whole communication and alignment element of Skip's philosophy.
Who are you liking in the playoffs?
So I would be completely fine with a Mariners-Brewers World Series.
I would too.
Actually, a Pilots Mariners World Series.
Yeah.
But listen, I know it's not cool to for fans to root for another AL West team. Like that's a terrible thing. But Seattle fans Ranger fans should have some sympathy for Mariner fans, right?
This isn't the Astros.
First of all, they're not the Astros.
Right.
Secondly, they're kind of a likable team. I mean, I like watching Cal Raleigh play. I like watching Julio Rodriguez play. Their pitching is phenomenal from 1 to 5 as opposed to 1 through 3. I think Munoz is the best closer in the game. And that fan base, that team, this is great, right? It's the Mariners, Blue Jays in the ALCS, because both those teams came in together in 77. So it's 49 seasons for the Mariners of never reaching the World Series. And their fan base, when things are going well in Seattle, that ballpark is electric and that fan base is electric. And so I hope they get to experience that this year. And I think the same goes for the Brewers,
And they're the only team in baseball that has never been to the World Series. There is one and only one, and that's Seattle.
Yeah. And listen, I'd be okay too if the Dodgers go back again, if Clayton Kershaw walks out of Major League Baseball with back-to-back World Series for one of the most distinguished careers in baseball history, and that's an incredibly talented team, I'd be fine with that. But if you're asking me what I'd like to see, I think I have some, just for the fan bases, I'd like to see those fan bases because I know how much it meant here,
Yeah.
And I can appreciate that for fan bases who haven't had a chance to experience it.
All I ever want...
Now, Rob Manfred doesn't want that. You know that. He wants the Dodgers.
I know. And all I ever want out of the World Series is no Yankees-Dodgers World Series. That's all I want, because when I was a kid, every year it was Yankees-Dodgers. It was usually both of them, but it was always one or the other. And enough, okay? Do you mind?
But look at it this way, Mike. You got to see Babe Ruth.
Oh.
That was an old joke.
Yeah, I know what it was. I did expect that from you.
I turned 60 last month, so I am now allowed to make old jokes. Good Lord.
60 children.
I feel so ancient. It's funny, I call Sean McFarland, my partner on the Rangers beat, and Kennedy Landry from MLB.com.
I think Sean McFarland's quite good.
They're both really good, but I call them my work children, and it's fun, but they are, I mean... They're younger than my stepkids. So,
man, I can't thank you enough for doing this. You were a font of information and facts and fun, like he always is.
Except for the alarm going off.
That was fun.
We could overlook that.
Yeah.
Sound effects, just sound effects.
Sure.
We're all about noises around.
Look, I'm thrilled that you asked me back. I'm happy to do it. I'd love to do something with Sarah one time because it's fun when she and I talk food. Mm-hmm. I'd love to come back when John and I can talk about the podcast a little bit. So
we're going to have an Evan month.
Okay. I'm down with an Evan month.
Sure.
We will have you and John in here. We'll have you and Sarah in here. We will make you a complete offshoot of this.
I will say this. We are very fortunate. Sarah... my best friend in the world is Nancy Nichols, who was a restaurant critic at D Magazine for a long time. She retired. Sarah has reinvented the restaurant beat, and she is I'm so proud of what she does and how well we cover the restaurant business in this town.
She is awesome at it.
And look, I have said for 30 years that I've been here in Dallas that restaurant is sport in this town, and we are finally covering it that way. And she does a great job. So
she does a great job indeed.
She's made the most appearances of any YDC guest.
That's right. She has. How many? What's she up to?
6, I think.
Is it 6?
Yeah.
Wow. Does she have like a jacket and everything? Like
we're
like
she's
a
working
5-timer
we got
club?
one on order. Yeah.
We're working on a jacket award.
All right. He is Evan Grant. He's with the Dallas Morning News. He covers the Rangers. He covers baseball. And he is a great guy. Thank you for doing this, man.
Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I do cover baseball. I do a good job, but I don't know how great of a guy I am.
I know how great of a guy you are, and I will tell anybody who asks. All right, that is your dark companion for this week. There is one other thing that I need to ask of you all out there, and that is you can find all episodes on our Patreon page. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. So what we need from you, listen, follow, share us on your social media. That means everything to those of us who swim in the waters of the podcast. And while we're at it, if you're feeling what we're throwing down, how about a nice review? If you're by the channel on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, help others find us by leaving a review. Thank you, Shoopy. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Becca. Thank you for watching. Bye.
All right. I'm gonna go take my pants off.
Your Dark Companion is a Stolen Water Media presentation.